All right, good evening. I hope tonight finds you doing well. She's still excited about class, I see. I like it. Those that might be joining us online, we welcome you also to our midweek Bible study. As usual, we will start with some prayer requests, and we'll mention that Randy Britton is scheduled to have another bladder cancer surgery tomorrow, and test results following that surgery will help determine a plan of treatment for him. I want to keep Randy in our prayers. Jackie Osborne, this is the aunt of Tim Clifton, is in Murray Regional being treated for colon perforation and 3 abscesses. She was also scheduled for another colon surgery today while still being on the ventilator. This was how serious and urgent this was. So we certainly want to be praying for Jackie, and we're still awaiting some results from that surgery. I want to extend Christian love and sympathy to April Rigsby on the death of her cousin Randall Kennedy. Randall was the brother-in-law of the late Jan Clifton. The visitation and burial will be held in Edinburgh, Virginia on Saturday, February the 4th. Here are a few reminders. My class tonight will be meeting downstairs in the big room between the 2 corner classes. So this is for the say what. Did Jesus just say that? What did he mean? It's essentially off limits because we've had that stripped and we're getting that waxed, and there's a lot going on in there. So if you've been coming to that class and want to continue that study, we're going to go downstairs tonight, okay? This Sunday, January the 22nd, we will have a 1 p.m. song service that Jeremy will not only be leading singing at, but he'll also be doing the devotional at the appropriate time. My family and I are heading out Saturday to go to a place that will take all of our energy away. And we'll be back a week from now. A week from Saturday, I should say. Lions will be going to the Shoals Area Youth Series at Heritage Christian University this Sunday, January 22nd. The plan is to stay for a singing that will take place at Chisholm Hills Church of Christ. So meet in the south parking lot at 4 p.m. And y'all should be back to the parking lot here by about 8:45 p.m. So that is this Sunday. Lions also, there will be a breakfast Bible study on Monday, January the 23rd at 6:45 a.m. at Jack's. My understanding is if you get your, order into Jeremy by Sunday evening, by text, if you can do that Sunday evening, think to do that, you don't have to be at Jack's until 7 o'clock. Okay? Give you 15 more minutes. As was announced this past Sunday morning, the elders have asked that we nominate those whom we believe are qualified to serve as elders here. There are now forms and a lot box on a round table in the foyer. And please list the names of those whom you would recommend and place the form in the designated box by Sunday, January the 29th. So we got about 2.5 weeks here. All right? And all of that is there in the main foyer. Yeah, there is a place for you to sign. We won't do the anonymous stuff, right? Just you put in who you're nominating and proudly sign your name and put it in there, okay? So I believe that's all I've got. And with that, turn it over to Jeremy.
We are glad that y'all are here tonight. It was brought to my attention, I'd been asking some of the questions relative to what some of the older classes have been studying on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights, and I'm going to do a little bit of that again. But I also have some questions for what some of the younger classes have been going through and studying. Last night you learned about a woman whose job would have easily given her a bad reputation. Okay? Her job would have easily given her a bad reputation. What was her name? Anybody? Okay, all right. You got it? I'm not sure which one you are. I'm not good with that yet. Stephen, do you know it? Do you remember? What? Rahab, that is right. Now, Rahab hid some folks in her house. What were the people doing that she helped to hide? What were they called? Spies. And then you also learned about there was something that happened. It was crazy. Some priests were carrying the ark and they stepped in some water. What happened to that water? No, not that one. It's a different story. What happened to the water? Okay. Keegan? No, not that one. Unless maybe some of y'all are studying different stuff. So some priests, they stepped into the water. What you got, William? What did the water do? It dried up. It stopped flowing. Now, what body of water was that? Was that a big ocean? Was that a creek? Was that what was it? What you got, Aubrey? It was the Jordan River. And so when they stepped in there, the water stopped flowing and they were able to cross on dry land. Pretty cool stuff. Really cool stuff, actually. And then some of you older ones were looking at something that happened to Jesus. And it's early on in his ministry, and he goes out and he doesn't eat for a really, really long time. How many days did Jesus go without food on this occasion? Knox, you're the first one. 40 days. And so at the end of those 40 days that he's been fasting, it's just a big fancy word that means he's depriving himself of the things necessary for the physical body. Okay, so he doesn't eat for 40 days. And then somebody comes to tempt him. Who did that? Who did, Chapman? Satan tempted him, and he tempts him in a few specific ways, right? Now, how many different ways, how many different times did those temptations come? All right, everybody's raising their hands on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. I thought you were going to say 4 because I said 1, 2, 3. But that's right. The answer is 3. So he tempts him 3 different times, and Jesus will at various points in time. One of the really neat things that I want you to notice for some of you older ones, the first one there is he's hungry. It's been 40 days since he's eaten. And so Satan says to turn these stones into what? Stones into, just say it, bread. And Jesus is going to be called the bread of life. He's going to have so many things where he talks about bread, and it's just a really neat study. That's last week I told you about an interesting study, or a couple weeks ago. Another one is just to look up the different instances of bread and how many times Jesus is around for some of those. It's pretty fun stuff. All right, let's all stand up. If you got joy, what do? You smile, okay? And then if we've got peace, what do we do for that one? We've got peace, right? Like the peace sign. And then we got love, okay? The heart. So you do this, you do this, and you hold it against your heart, right? We've got love. Okay, so we've got joy like a fountain. We've got peace like a river. And we've got love like an ocean. So the river's got one hand coming across. The ocean has both hands going out. Okay, we got that? All right. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. Now put them all together. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got peace like a river. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got peace like a river. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. All right, again, we are thankful that you are here, and at this time you can go ahead and be dismissed to your classes. See, Jacob is left-eared. I'm right-eared, so I want this over here. But it's supposed to go over here. It's kind of weird. I'm just trying to get my wits about me. I've been at another meeting and then jumped in the car and came here, and I was like, I don't even know if I have my notes. I did not have my Bible, and I was like, well, that's important. But I'm going to make it anyway. So we may just have a prayer and dismiss. I don't know what we're going to do. And I got to get a clicker. All right, I'll try to stand a little taller for the people in the back. I don't like being up there if I don't have to be, so I try to stay down here. All right. So as you can see, we're going to talk about living courageously. This got a little crazier trying to plan out than I thought it would be. I went about 19 different directions. I landed at 5 different ones, so this lesson may be all over the place. I don't know yet. Anyway, see if I remember how to do this. Remember this graphic that was shown Sunday? How many of you pictured yourself falling and what your worst spill was that day? Anybody else do that, or is it just me? Like I went directly to this one time that I fell. I looked exactly like that. So I'd kind of tell you the story of that one. So there's this crazy
ridiculous workout that we do at the gym. We do it once a year on Memorial Day, and I'll explain that later. But this is it. It's called Murph. Murph is a 1 mile run, which I hate running. Hate it. Hated doing basketball. Hated doing basketball, football, whatever. 100 pull-ups. So you do a 1 mile run. You come back to the gym, do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats. And then you run another mile. And if that's not crazy enough, you then are supposed to add a 20-pound armored vest, kind of like what Tanner wears whenever he's out and about. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And yes, it takes me about 45 minutes or so. I don't do the vest because I weigh about 260 pounds. It's built in, so I don't have to worry about that. But this one particular day, the gym's over on Depot Street. I'm like, you know what? This year I feel good. I'm going to beat my last time, which I don't even remember what it was. I'm going to beat my best time. I feel like I can run the mile better this year. The second one's still questionable. First one I'm pretty good with. I get out there. We have to run up Depot Street, take a ride on Military. So I take off running. I'm feeling good after about the first 100 yards. I'm like, I might be able to do a second. I get my phone and turn the playlist on, and it's my son's playlist. It's Eli's, which he's like 7 at the time. So it's this ridiculous music. So I pull out my phone and I'm running and I'm trying to switch music, and boom, I'm on the ground. I look exactly like this guy. I tumble over, I hit the ground. I look up, I don't know what happened. I looked over and the concrete on the sidewalk was about that much higher than the other pad. And that's what I hit to roll over. My friends, quote unquote, run past, hey, you okay? I don't know. All right, we'll see you in a minute. And they just rolled on. So I say all this because this, it kind of ties in to this gentleman here. This is who that workout is named after. His name is Michael Murphy, and he is a U.S. Navy lieutenant who passed away in 2005. Now, you may not have heard of him, but I'm fixing to tell you about him, and I'm going to get my screenshot out here so I can make sure I tell you the right stuff. Because I have, you have things in your mind one way, and it's actually not that, and my wife will tell you that. All right, so the Murph workout is named for U.S. Lieutenant Michael Murphy, who was killed in Afghanistan in 2005. On this fateful day, Lieutenant Murphy and 3 other Navy SEALs, Marcus Luttrell, Danny, I'm going to mess up his last name, Dietes, and Matt Axelson, were pinned down by the militia Mountain Tiger guerrilla group. Lieutenant Murphy's team made a desperate attempt to escape, but were ultimately outmanned and outgunned. They were trapped in a ravine and severely injured. The team couldn't get a clear signal to call for backup. So you're in a ravine and you can't call out a signal. It was then that Lieutenant Murphy made a brave decision to leave his mountain cover to take the call. Despite being shot in the back by enemy forces, Lieutenant Murphy persevered and completed the call. There's actually more to that story that goes along with his mother, but I'll probably wind up crying because Aaron and I were talking about it this morning, and I almost did then. But just think about that. Being trapped, and you have to have the courage, first of all, to get up and make such a crazy move. And guarantee you he did it without thinking. He's like, it's got to be done. So I'm sure you're wondering about what happened to the other 3. There was only one survivor, and that was Mr. Luttrell. He was the ultimate survivor. The others have passed away. Lieutenant Murphy received the Medal of Honor, and Luttrell, Dietes, and Axelson were awarded a Navy Cross. But to think about somebody being trapped in a ravine and you having the courage, the ability to even think about jumping out there and doing something like that is unreal. So thinking about that as we're talking about living courageously, first of all, let's define these terms because we use courage and brave interchangeably. So here, we're talking about bravery. It is the quality or state of having or showing mental or moral strength to face danger, fear, or difficulty. It is facing fear without hesitation. Now, in the same lot, we have the term courage. This is the one that I really liked, and it says the attitude of facing and dealing with anything recognized as dangerous, difficult, or painful. Instead of withdrawing from it, quality of being fearless or brave or valor. Now, if you remember, if you were in the class about a couple of Sundays ago, we talked about sympathy and empathy, and we talked about compassion. And what was the one thing that linked those two together? Because they're used interchangeably as well. If you have sympathy and empathy for something, compassion comes about because you take action. That's the same way it is with this. Courage is having that attitude, having that mindset of being able to face your fear. Bravery is actually acting on that. So it's the action part of it. And courage is something that is generally, if not always, a direct product of fear. So I don't have very many other slides because time's been crazy. Let me see if I got this. All right. So the interesting thing about courage is it looks different on everyone. One of the things that I have learned is that it doesn't matter how old you are or what season of life you are, courage changes. It's something new all the time. Used to it would be, trying to, maybe asking out a person or asking the person to marry you or taking that step of buying a home or finding a job or doing those kinds of things. As you get older, I've kind of found out that it's like, got the courage to go to the doctor? I know I got a problem. And if you're in my family is stubborn. Right, Mac? No. They'll wait till the last minute or until it's detrimental, and then they'll finally go because they diagnose themselves on WebMD, right? But what does courage look like? Well, it could be trying a new food, trying something you've never tried before, engaging in a new experience of some kind, asking for a promotion. I know people who've tried to do that. They're real scared about asking because they don't know what the boss is going to say. What about leaving an abusive relationship? What about making a public presentation? Standing up in front of somebody and talking? What about leaving a bad job? That's something my wife and I have talked about, just kind of, career change. Is this what you want to do the rest of your life? What about, this is always an interesting one too, and guys, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's only certain things during a church service that you want to do, right? And it's interesting because you'll have people that they want to lead a prayer, but not on Sunday morning. They'll do the closing prayer, they'll do the Wednesday night prayer, but they don't want to do the lead prayer. They don't want to do the Lord's Supper. Some people just don't want to do that. They don't feel comfortable doing it. My personal one is I don't want to lead a song. And that goes for a lot of people. You have select few people that want to do that. But those are examples of having courage to do something, kind of stepping outside the box, if you will. So my next question is courage something that we're born with? Is it something that we actually have already in possession? Or is it something that's kind of learned? The website that I looked at today, I think, said it absolutely best. They're like, when you're a baby, and it was actually called Project Men. It's one of those websites of trying to train boys to be men, and this was just an article they had. They said, but think about a baby. When a baby's born, and they hear something, they hear a clap, what do? They shake. Because they're scared, they're not sure what it is. when they cry about something. You know, other than being hungry, I mean, I still cry when I'm hungry, but it's if you cry because you're hungry, or but babies will cry because they're afraid of the dark, or because they heard something, or because they saw me, or they saw Mac, or they saw Shane for the first time, and they don't know who he is, and you know, those are things that they have to learn. They have to learn that, oh, this is okay, this person's okay. They're also going to say men, and that's because of the type of website, who risk themselves fighting in war, charging into burning buildings, or jumping in front of bullets, don't do it because they were born without fear. They do it because in that moment, something deep inside them overpowers their fear. In reality, everyone feels fear, and fear serves a valuable purpose. Self-preservation could be it. Fear holds us back from self-destructive activities and enables us to proceed with caution when situations call for it. To overcome the fears that keep us safe, we must have a drive strong enough to propel us out of our comfort zones. Now, I'll tie all of this in here just shortly, but here's kind of a story that I kind of enjoyed, because I've already picked on Mac once, but I can see him doing this. So whenever I read this, you're the one I thought of, because you're that pleasant of a person. Said there is a well-known tale from an ancient India about a young man who was seeking God. He went to a wise old sage for help. "How can I find God?" he asked the old man. The old man took him to a nearby river. They waded into the deep water. Soon the water was up under their chins. It's a perfect place, right? Right up under their chins. And suddenly the old man took the boy's head, pushed it underwater. Excuse me. He held on another few seconds. He may have drowned. Up out of the water, the two of them came. The young man was coughing water from his lungs and still gasping for air. Reaching the bank, he asked the man indignantly, What did that have to do with me finding God?" The old man asked him quietly, "While you were underwater, what did you want more than anything else?" The young man thought for a minute, and he answered, "Well, I wanted air. I wanted air more than anything else." The old man replied, "When you want God as much as you want air, you'll find Him." And I find that interesting because when we look at somebody like David, specifically in 1 Samuel chapter 17, who is it that he's about ready to face? Who is it that he's deciding to face? He has decided he is going to face Goliath, right? Now, this is an obvious elementary story that we all know and we all love, because the guy's so much taller than him. He's a giant, possibly 9 feet or so tall. But think about what David says, because it takes obviously a lot of courage. So how did he obtain this courage? Well, one of the things he says is in verse 37, he said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine." He's given God all of the respect that He's due, all of the credit that He's due for helping him in the past. So guess what? I've got enough courage now because the Lord is with me. Remember in the story that he takes a helmet, puts it on. He takes the armor, puts it on. He takes a sword. And what does he do? He takes it off. Why did he take it off? He said it hadn't been tested. He said he hadn't tested it. Now, maybe I'm just a normal guy. If I wear a helmet when I ride a bike, I didn't test it either. Right? I didn't test that helmet. I don't know that it works, but I'm assuming it's been tested, right? That's kind of the attitude I would go with. But David was just like, it hasn't been tested. I'm not comfortable with this. He has more confidence that God will guide him. So what does he take? He takes a slingshot and he takes 5 smooth stones, and that's what he goes with. That's courage. And his courage is completely based on God. If you look in Psalm 27, David actually writes in there, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Verse 4 says, "One thing I have asked of the Lord that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the days of trouble, and he will conceal me under the cover of his tent, and he will lift me high upon a rock. And now my head shall be lifted up above the enemies all around me. And I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy, and I will sing and I will make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, and be gracious to me and answer me." It just shows how all in with God he is. Remember what I said, what we talked about with the little Indian boy. It says, when you want God as much as you want air, you'll find God. And having this shows that David truly found God and truly has all the confidence in him that builds the courage that he needs to live life. You can even go as far as, I believe it's verse 17. I need a bigger podium up here. Verse 17, it says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage." Yes, wait for the Lord. So how desperately do you want God? God's or David is telling God that I want what you want. So let's talk about Jesus for a second. Where does Jesus show his courage? There's a couple of really good examples, actually. But I'll tell you the one that I guess kind of hit a chord with me, and I think it's maybe it's just me that kind of underrates it more so than anybody else, is John 18:4. In John 18, we know that he's about to be betrayed. He's about to be arrested. He knows what's fixing to happen to him. He's well aware of it all. You can go back to, in John 18:4, says, "Jesus therefore, knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, 'Who are you seeking?' And they answered, 'Jesus of Nazareth.' And he says, 'I am he.'" Knowing what's about to happen to you, knowing that you're about to be arrested, knowing all the things leading up to the cross, and he comes and confesses, "Here I am, it's me," knowing all that's about to take place. That's about as full of courage as one person can get. Now, transitioning there, you think about him in the Garden of Gethsemane. Because I tend to put Jesus on this level where he knows what's going to happen. He's just going to go to it and face it, right? His attitude is, I'm facing it no matter what. But then we look into the garden, and one of the things is that he says, he prays, "Father, if you're willing, please take this from me. But I want your will to be done." In other words, he's all in. But there's that moment that he's praying for courage. I mean, that is courage being prayed for right there. And I feel like there's times I know I skip over it. Because like I said, I just have this in my mind that he's just got that drive that he knows exactly what he's got to do, and he's going to do it. And yes, I know Jesus wept. But I just have that in my head. And this is a good reminder that even Jesus needed courage. He faced a lot. When you know you're fixing to get beaten and insulted and spat upon and everything, it takes courage to face that. I'm not walking into a fight knowing I'm fixing to get beat up, are you? I mean, I don't like doing that. I wouldn't do that. Just going to kind of give you an idea of people who kind of have their fears and their seeming courage misconstrued a little bit. A woman in Arkansas was sitting in her hot car in a parking lot when she heard a loud bang and felt a sharp pain in the back of her head. She was holding her hands behind her head when someone walked by and asked, and I'm holding in my brains. Well, it wasn't her brain, it was dough. A can of biscuits had exploded in the back seat and apparently hit her from the heat and hit her in the back of the head. It made a loud popping sound. You know, we can take this to any level you want. She thought she was being real brave right at that very minute, holding her brains in. When in truth, it wasn't that at all. That's just a story I thought I'd throw in there. But if we look further into the Bible about what God can provide for us, no matter what season of life that you're in, we can look anywhere. 1 Chronicles 28:20. Be strong and courageous, and do not be afraid. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God, my God, is with you. He will not fail you or forsake you until all the work for the service of the temple of the Lord is finished. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully in the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Of course, Deuteronomy 31:6-8. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you, and He will never leave you nor forsake you. Now that's being courageous, especially in today's world, is something we all need, and we all have to help each other. There was actually a study in 2014 that said that it's called emotional, and I'm going to mess this word up, emotional contagion. I knew if I looked over at my wife, she'd correct me. I've learned to read her lips. She hates when I misspell words, and she hates when I make up words. I make up words all the time. You know, like inflifitated. That's a great word that we use a lot. But the idea is that courage can transfer from person to person. So if I see that a person has had courage in something that they fought, in the battle that they fought, that I can do it as well. And maybe you're saying, you know what, so-and-so's going through this, and this is how they faced it. Michael Mashburn's a perfect example. Think about everything he went through. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I was like he, and you've already gotten over some of this stuff already, and then you feel that one thing, or you're having to go back, it takes a lot of courage to go back to the doctor again, because you don't want to know the results. But he fought that continuously. And that's something that I think all of us realize and have been touched by. And the fact that we know that what he went through, we can go through the things that we face and the fears that we have. That research kind of explains too why if somebody's crying, somebody else cries. You know, it's that same line. That's all I have. Where's the time at? All right. So I'm going to end early, but we'll end in a prayer. Our God and our Father, we're so thankful for this evening. We're thankful for the opportunity to study your word. We're so thankful that through you we can be given the courage to face this life. We pray that you'll supply that to us and help us to turn to you to give us the things that we need, the tools that we need. We're so thankful for the example that you provided us of courage of David and Jesus, and just pray that we can follow that. Lord, we pray that you'll be with us as we go through the rest of this week. Help us to lead a life of courage and to shine your light wherever we go. We thank you again for your Son, Jesus, and what he means to us. And we are so thankful that you love us so much that you sent him to die on the cross for our sins. And it's His name we pray. Amen.